The Pam Goodwin Show is a show that features the biggest names in television, successful entrepreneurs, future new talents, and local heroes. She has been a leading influencer in the automotive world and now in the real estate industry. She leads a team of more than 500 realtors. She's an author, a contributor on Fox News, a mom, and a grandma. Welcome, Lisa Copeland. I am thrilled and excited to have our next guest. We have been following each other on social media all these years, and now I am thrilled to interview the one and only Lisa Copeland. Welcome to the Pam Goodwin Show.
Good morning. God, it has been a long time. What's taking you so long to get me on this show?
I know. I'm so thrilled to finally have you. I'd love to start off by, I know you recently attended the Women's 10X with Elena Cardone, which is Grant Cardone's wife, in Miami, with some very powerful women, and would love to hear some of your takeaways from that event.
Yeah, thank you. So I was actually one of the speakers, and it was my second 10X ladies to speak at. And, I spoke about, the title was Lioness, Not a Lamb. And I think that women today, and this is International Women's Month, History Month. And so I think it's really an important topic. But, so many women today are afraid to rise up, right? And so I created this whole keynote for Elena because the name of her event was 10X Ladies Risk Takers, right? And her and I firmly believe that in the year 2022, that if you're not willing to take a risk, if you're not willing to put yourself out there, you're going to be left behind. And the world we live in and what's going on in the world today. So, there was myself and 9 other speakers, and then of course, Elena, and we had over 1,000 women and men. There was probably 15% men there in the audience. And, and we just encouraged them, like, this is the time. If you're ever going to stand up, if you're ever going to rise up, if you're ever going to go next level, this is the time right now. And so Lioness, Not a Lamb is all about the power of the lioness, because, they call the lion the king of the jungle. And that's what we hear, right? He's the king of the jungle. Well, the real story behind the lion is he sleeps 20 hours a day and he has 2 jobs: to mate and to defend the lioness. That's all the lion does. But what happens with the lion is the lion will someday go away. He'll either be killed by a younger lion who wants to take over the pride, or he'll die. The lionesses stay together forever. And there's between 9 and 12 lionesses in a pride. And the pride is about a 100-mile radius. And but without the lioness, the pride would not survive. They hunt together. They raise each other's children or their cubs. They feed each other's cubs. If one should die, they adopt the cub. So it's just the collaboration of the lionesses is what keeps them alive. It keeps them relevant. So really, the whole story behind my talk was all about the fact that the lioness is really the queen of the jungle. It isn't as sexy of a title a lot of times as being the lion, but the other part to the speech, or the other part to the point I was trying to get across is that the lioness has got to learn to work with the lion, and that's really important, so that it's not an us against them message. So,
why do you think so many women have fear or lack of confidence? That's what I see in a lot of women. So that's why I wanted to do this show, to have guests like you who, reading your story, you came from the automotive industry, which is completely a male dominated, and you took over. You were a general manager of one of the number one largest Fiat Alfa Romeo dealership.
I was actually the dealer principal. So I was the dealer principal and the general manager. And it was a tough industry. I told you I just gotten off doing an interview for a national news show and we were talking about that. And she said, what are the barriers to entry for women in the automotive industry? And I'm like, because women have to see it to be it. So when she walks into a dealership or she walks into a real estate office, whatever that looks like, and she doesn't see herself sitting at a desk, or she doesn't see other women doing the job, she doesn't have the imagination that most women don't want to be that trailblazer. And I think back, I'm thinking, I didn't really want to be that trailblazer. I really wish that I would have had mentors. I really wish I would have had people that rooted for me. And I had very few. It was a small club that was the Lisa Copeland fan club. Very small club. And I'm still friends with those people today. And I'm grateful for them because I don't think I would have gone, and they were men, and I don't think I would have gone as far as I did without them. But there was a whole lot more that were against me than that were for me.
That's interesting. Why do you think they were against you?
Because I was trying to shake it up, because I was pretty high profile, because there were not a lot of me. I was trying to shake it up. I was trying to change the status quo. And there were people that I was surrounded with that had done the same thing for 30 years, and they didn't want it shaken up. They were good. They were making plenty of money. Life was good. And what I was doing was uncomfortable. And, anytime you create uncomfort, you create rivals. And then once they get irritated enough, they start to rise up against you. I'm going to write a book about that someday, Pam. Like I wrote one book in 16 about crushing mediocrity, but there will be a day that I write a book about the rise up. I think about my dear friend Elena Cardone and about empire, and what, she wrote a book called Build an Empire. And that book was amazing. It really changed my thought process, and working with her every day changes everything for me. And one of the things that she says is that empires are destroyed from the inside. So you want to find the ones you trust and then build an empire with them, but they are destroyed from the inside. So, when you look at all the great empires, the Roman Empire, I love watching the shows, Catherine the Great out of Russia, and Mary, Queen of Scots, and all of these, different women empire builders. They were not taken out by outside sources. They were taken out from the inside. And so that would be the big piece of advice I would give everybody, is that you better watch who you let in your empire. And you better be careful who you let in your empire, because the ones on the inside are the ones, because they have information. They're the ones who are going to try to destroy you.
That's interesting.
You didn't think we were going to go that deep this morning, did you?
I've realized that after being in business for 30 plus years of, watching who you trust and who you collaborate is key in today's success. I wanted to, going back to automotive, which I just love I want to find out how you were able to sell more than 100 cars in 1 month, and what inside you gave you that drive to do that and succeed.
First of all, I had the greatest team on planet Earth, right? So I didn't do it. My team did it. I had the privilege of leading the greatest team in America, probably in the world, because they broke a world sales record, not just a US sales record. And the drive was, I talk about those mentors, those people that we look up to, and the chairman of the board of Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo. His name was Sergio Marchionne. And he, in my mind, still to this day, he's deceased, but to this day, I still think he was the greatest leader the automotive industry has ever seen. And I wanted to meet him. I wanted to know Sergio Marchionne, because what I knew and what I believed, and my own self-prophecy came true, that if I knew him and he knew me, it would change my life and it would change my career. And it did. And so I made a bet with then the president of Fiat. His name was Tim Kuniskis. And I said, and at that point, our store was the number one store in the country. And I had the greatest team in the country. And I said, Tim, I want to meet Marchionne. Now, remember, he was the head of Fiat globally. So it wasn't just the US, and Fiat owned all those brands. Plus they had shipping and trains, and they were out of Italy. And they were probably the second biggest player in that space in all of automotive, trains, ships, everything. And Tim said, you're not going to meet Marchionne. It's just not going to happen. I said, what do we need to do? Just give me something. Just give me something that I can work toward, that I can hang my hat on. And he said, you need to break the world sales record. If you break the world sales record, I can probably get Marchionne. I can probably get you a meeting with Marchionne, is what he said. I'm like, okay, what's the number? And the number was 100. At that point, we only had one little car, that little baby car. And the 500E, the Cinquecento, just the 500, it was the Cinquecento. And so he gave us the number. Month one, we did not hit it. I think we were at 91 cars. And I was devastated. My team was devastated. And so I called Tim Kuniskis and I said, we need one more month. And he was like, all right, one more. But he had the ability to look at my inventory. And he said, you don't even have 100 cars. How are you going to get there? And I'm like, don't worry about how I'm going to get there. Just get me the extension. If you can get me the extension, we will get there. So I started buying cars from all over the country. And at that point, we were at the Domain in Austin, and these big transport trucks were coming in. They were dropping off cars, and everybody thought I'd lost my mind. But my team, not me, but my team came through, and they gave it all they got. And I jumped in there. I sold a few cars that month for sure, and it was just a moment in time. And so when I met Mr. Markey, so what happened is that when it happened, this president of Fiat called me and he said, I have not told Mr. Marchione about the bet. I'm like, you need to tell him about the bet, because otherwise I'm going to call him and tell him about the bet. Like, we killed ourselves to get to this point. And so anyways, he did tell Mr. Marchione. Mr. Marchione showed up, honored the bet at my dealership. And it was just a moment in time. And I just, when I met him and I had a private meeting with him, it changed my life. So when people ask me, what do you do to be successful? You need to set a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? So my goal was never to break the world sales record. My goal was to meet Marchione. And so, but we had to break the world sales record to get there. So we did what we had to do to meet the person, honestly, for me to meet the person that I knew would change the trajectory of my career. And it did. It put me on a national stage. And that was important at that point in my career. And, myself, and I know my former team, we're all still writing that story from 10 years ago, because it was 2012. I mean, it doesn't even seem like that long ago, or was it 14? It was either 12 or 14. God, you think I'd remember? It was 2012 when we did that. So that was 10 years ago. And I still get to tell the story today, as does my team, right? My former team.
I know. I love that story. And then I'm, reading, it seemed you're speaking all over the country, talking about the automotive world. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, we have the pandemic happen. And I followed you, and then it seemed like instantly, while everybody else was just like, what are we going to do, sitting back, doing nothing in, 2020. And then I see Lisa get into real estate and now take over the world. And that it just goes to show you, I just look like you just flipped a switch, got into real estate, and where you are today with more than 600. Tell the story of how that happened.
Yeah, thank you. I made it look easy, but it goes back to when you align yourself with the right people, then, it doesn't take you as long to get to where you want to go. And so I had our agent, so I was out speaking. I sold the dealership in 2016. I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books, actually. Did a TV show in Canada. I was speaking all over the country for Fortune 5s, Fortune 1s, just crazy book on speaking. And I get a call from my agent one day right before the pandemic started to hit. And he's like, everyone's canceling. There's a pandemic, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so literally I was like, what am I going to do? And I'm thinking, I've already been a car dealer. I've already owned an insurance company. I own a mortgage company. Oh, okay. The only thing I haven't done is real estate. I swear to God, it went down just like that. And so I was introduced to by agents in New York. I was introduced to a guy by the name of Haas Pratt. And so Haas, myself, and a guy by the name of Tariq El Moussa from HGTV, Haas and I had known each other a couple years ago, and they reached out to me and they said, we're going to build the largest real estate team on the planet. And, what are you doing right now? And I said, I just got my real estate license. Like, again, what I call that is like kismet, right? Because what are the chances? And what are the chances I would have met Haas a couple of years prior to? And so anyways, so I said yes. And that's what I will tell everybody out there. Like, don't be afraid to pivot. Like, I had nothing to do once the pandemic hit. I couldn't get on airplanes and speak to large crowds and audiences anymore. I wasn't going to do any more TV. Like, all of that came to a screeching halt. So I could have sat home and ate Twinkies and sat on the couch and been depressed, or I could have recreated the biggest pivot of all times. And, I tell people that, like, don't be afraid to pivot. And I'll tell you, I was super scared of failing because I'd had so much success in the automotive industry. I was so well known and so high profile. And I thought, God, what if I go out and I get in the real estate industry? I never sell a house. I don't, Tariq and Haas kick me out because I don't do a good job, whatever. Like, all that fear comes in. And I thought, you know what? I got nothing to lose, because if I fail, it won't be the first time I failed. It'll just be, I'll just add it to that bucket list, and then I'll figure out something else to do. Luckily, I did not fail. But I will tell you, I've done as well as I've done because of my partners, because of Tarek and Brian Colhane and Haas Pratt. And, I look at the Grant and Elena Cardone. So I look at my partners and I go, how could I fail? You can't fail when you surround yourself with the right people, the right team. Empires, Pam, are not built solo. There has never been an empire that has been built by itself. And the quickest way to success is speed. You've got to have speed to success. And you have to have the right tools for success. You've got to have the right vehicle to success, right? So when I looked at the whole package at EXP and I looked at the team and I looked at the people that I would work with every single day, like, how could I fail? You can't. It's impossible. So anybody out there that's looking to pivot, anybody out there that's like, oh, I'm stuck, I'm going to tell you, you're not working with the right people.
And as women, don't you think that so many of us try to do it by ourselves? And you learn you have to have a team to build your empire, just like you mentioned.
Oh, you do. Yeah. And one of the reasons I think women, because you're in a male dominated industry in commercial real estate, right? Real estate itself is not male dominated, but commercial is a boys club. I know that 1,000,000% because I looked at it and I thought, I don't want to do this again. I do not want to go fight the boys again. I'm out. But that being said, when you, back to women, sorry, I digress, but back to the women have a hard time collaborating. And, one of the things I speak on is the lioness, not a lamb, right? We talked about it earlier. And so when you get into the lioness mindset, and that you want to create a pride and that your pride is loyal to you and your pride is collaborative, that's when you'll be a rocket ship. You will rocket to outer linear orbit. I think about, I don't think I would have ever hit a 10X stage as a speaker if Elena Cardone wasn't my partner, right? I mean, I wouldn't have. And I've known Grant for 12 years. I love Grant. I've always liked Grant. But without her collaboration, without her belief in what I do and why I do it, right? And so, find the ones you trust, and then you build an empire. And you will not build an empire by yourself. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. Nobody's ever done it. And if they did, it's not sustainable.
So what did you do? Just reach out to the people you wanted to team with? And I think that's part of it. I always tell people, if you don't ask, you don't get. So what did you do? Just pick up the phone?
I did. Well, so I was already with Tarek and Haas, right? Because they picked up the phone and reached out to me. And then I was like, who else would I want to build an empire with? And so I reached out to Grant, and it was not an easy sell. I can tell you that right now. But here's the great part about it. Grant was like, no, I'm too busy. It isn't big enough for me, whatever. And then Elena happens to overhear a conversation, because I had all the big guns involved to bring Grant over. And so the chairman of our company, another billionaire by the name of Glenn Sanford, greatest guy ever. I called him and I said, hey, I want to bring over Grant Cardone. And at this point, Elena wasn't even in my peripheral vision. I had no clue. And I said, will you jump on a call with him? And he's like, of course I would. I'd love to talk to Grant Cardone. So he gets on the phone with Grant. Grant and Elena happen to be driving down the street together. Grant always talks on speaker. And they're going back and forth. And Grant said, I don't have time to go get a real estate license. I have a REIT. I've got all this other stuff. No. And Elena looks at Grant and she whispers to him. She said, well, should I get a real estate license? Because this sounds pretty exciting. And the chairman of our company said, that would be perfect. That would be amazing. So I literally get a call from Elena Cardone the next day. And she's like, get me the name of a real estate school. I'm going to go get my license. See, but that is how the lion and the lioness work together, right? The lion didn't have the bandwidth or really the interest to do it, but the lioness came in and said, but I understand the whole concept of this. And it wasn't that Grant didn't understand it. He did. He just didn't have any more bandwidth. He was filming Undercover Billionaire at the time. All kinds of stuff was going on. But when Elena heard it, she was like, I could do this. This falls into everything I want to do about building an empire. And what I love about them is that they've already built their empire. Now she's so committed to helping other people build theirs. And that was the vehicle that she needed. She needed a vehicle for that. And EXP was the vehicle. So, but again, if I would not have asked Grant, if I would not have hounded Grant about it, because in my soul, I didn't even know what it was that Grant needed to do with us. I just knew it was something, because I had mad respect from him from the car business. And he really hadn't broken into real estate training and things like that a little bit, but not to the level he did in automotive. And I'm just like, Grant, this industry needs you. He's like, I don't disagree with you. I have no bandwidth. I can't do it. So in swoops Elena Cardone, and the rest is history.
And now with what, more than close to 700, and I read, your team sold what, more than 200 billion last year in real estate?
Yeah, 2 billion, not 200. I wish. Oh. Yeah. But 2 billion. I was about to say 200 billion. I wish 2 billion. And and the team this time last year was half the size of the team. And then by this time next year, we will be, we're tracking for probably close to 2,000 agents. So you start doing the math on that, and and we're going to be an $8 billion team. And as it keeps going and growing and things like that, and what happens when you have that kind of synergy? Our chairman of the board tweeted 2 weeks ago. He said that eXp Realty has more listings, according to the data, and we're a very data-driven company. We have more listings than any real estate company in the world. Collectively, our company, and we just overtook RE/MAX when it comes to the number of agents. So, we have a lot of forward positive momentum, and again, because we're agent owned. And so we're all about building the empire. So it has just been great to be part of something that's bigger than me, to work with people, because I didn't have that luxury in the auto industry. I didn't work with anybody any big thinkers. They were pretty localized, very successful in their own right, but very localized. And I've always had this big global view. How do you go big? How do you go bigger? How do you build an empire, right? And so this is a vehicle that has given me the ability to, those 700 agents they're in the US, Canada, and in 19 countries. So, I've really built a global empire and a global business. And so how do you sustain a hit? It's you build something so strong that it can sustain a hit.
So you've been in several different industries, and I always ask every guest, what is on your bucket list, both personally and business-wise?
Oh, I'm absolutely where I'm supposed to be. So I have no forward thought of doing anything other than what I'm doing. And on my bucket list would be that Elena and I, we're working on a couple projects that I'm super excited about that are geared toward women. And so that's really a big deal. But just really just doing what I'm doing now because I love it so much, and helping other people build their empires, because we have the playbook. We know what to do. She and I know what to do fundamentally to help. And we have the connections. And most importantly, we have the vehicle, right? Because you can have all the greatest intentions in the world, but if you don't have the vehicle that can support that empire, that, expansion, then you're stuck. You're absolutely stuck. And it's just going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 90 days with looming wars and fuel prices and things like that, because I'm interested to see what it could potentially do to supply chain when it comes to real estate. So it's kind of like, strap in, but I do feel like that we've built enough of an empire that we can sustain a hit that a lot of realtors and real estate companies are not going to be able to sustain if everything starts to, take a downward spiral for a short amount of time during this craziness in the world.
I know. Thank goodness we're both in Texas, and hopefully can overcome some of the, what's going on in the world, especially in real estate. It's booming, and we'll see what happens with interest rates.
Oh, interest rates are they're going to skyrocket. My husband owns a mortgage company, and they're up 1.5 points in the last 6-8 weeks, and it's definitely weakening the buying power of the consumer. And so high-end listings, which I tend to have, I've got several right now, with the stock market and all of that. So boy, what a difference 12 months makes, huh, Pam?
It sure does. What's your final thoughts on, encouraging women to build their empire?
To find the ones they trust, because it starts with that. You cannot do it by yourself. So, stop trying to be a solopreneur. It doesn't work. I've tried to do it. Everyone I know has tried to do it who's massively successful. And until they came together and we formed what we have formed, We have never hit heightened levels of success until we all came together. So there's that. Find the ones that you trust, 1,000,000%. No matter what industry you're in, find the right vehicle, right? So you have to be aligned with the right company, with the right vehicle, the right tools. Because we're heading into some pretty hairy waters. And so I hope that whatever you all are doing and whatever industry you're in, that you're aligned with the right vehicle that can sustain a hit. Because it is going to be a rough 6 months. I really believe that, between the stock market, interest rates, inflation, World War III, and gas prices.
I know it's a new world.
All of this, Pam, in 12 months. Imagine that.
I know, we praying for peace, and we're all hoping for the normal, how it used to be, but it is going to be rocky, and you have to be prepared and look out and, like you said, team up with the right people. What's the best way to reach you, Lisa?
Probably the best way, follow me on Instagram, real_Lisa Copeland. And if you're interested in joining my real estate team, or you want to know more about working with me and Elena Cardone and Tarek El Moussa, go to lisacopeland.work, lisacopeland.work. And you go to either of those two places and you'll find me.
Well, I love seeing your journey and all that you do for women. We all need each other, and look forward to seeing all the other great things you do. Thanks again, Lisa.
Oh, thanks again, Pam. Thanks for having me.